Well, good evening, everybody. I was gonna do a video, sort of in response to the pagan perspective. This last week was on a particular um, topic of why the neo Wiccans didn't like Buckland, and then I also saw the spin-off conversation that came off of that about being a true pagan. Um, Terra Incognito and Mirth and Reverence have both done videos, and I believe that I'd seen one other one. Um, and I heard part of the pagan perspective's views on what the person had written in, questioning um, a video that they had seen that turned them off, and because the woman was rather crass about how she was criticizing Raymond Buckland and a particular book he wrote many a year ago, the Big Blue Book, his very large uh, Book of Shadows and teaching book for people who could not join covens and such. And it was a way to give them information. Um, and I didn't have an opinion at first because I'm not Wiccan and I'm not Neo-Wiccan, and I don't necessarily know the difference between a Wiccan and a Neo-Wiccan anyway. My thought process would be that the modern age versus way back when, and like the neo-pagans versus the original pagans, thousands of years ago. We are different, but our world has changed, and so therefore some things change with it. But I didn't really understand that part of it, but I did go click the link and I listened to the video in question. And I had to say that I was kind of taken aback by her attitude, but she did say it was her personal opinion, not so much the book, but yet she had issues with the book, and um, she basically gave away that she is young, and sometimes the problem with someone that is younger, when you're reflecting back on a work that was done way before your time and in a different era, and it's more a generational thing that I think that she had issue with because she didn't understand. Um, she wasn't around before the age of the internet. She wasn't around in a day of censorship and the restrictions on what you could information you could find. It's not the same as it was today, way back when he wrote that book, or when Gardner was doing his beginnings, and Alexander, all the different people who broke through to our modern paganism. They were trailblazers, and I don't think she understood. I think she had some misconceptions about that. But I didn't want to hold an opinion on just one particular video because anybody can have a day where, that person's just irritating to you that moment, and you say some things out of context on a video because you're not really thinking about how it's coming off, and self-editing and that kind of thing. And so I wasn't going to judge on just that particular video. So I clipped through several more of her videos, and then there it was, her bashing New Agers as well. And my thoughts on it were about the original videos were that someone so young professing to be not just a Wiccan, but a high priestess. And one of her complaints about buckling was the only reason she was reading this book was so that she could know what newbies were reading, so that when they came to her, she could teach them the right way after being taught the wrong way. That was extreme arrogance, in my opinion, and very ironic coming from someone who is a self-proclaimed leader, because I think that with leadership, first of all, has to come some wisdom, and if you're going to be a leader, you need to be have a little more knowledge and understanding of your new ideas, varied ideas, and even though you might be teaching or guiding in a specific path or whatever, you still have to be catering to a group of individuals within the group, and a leader can't be so a leader has to just be a little more diplomatic, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Also, you need to understand your foundations and where they came from and how they came. And I am a believer of creating a path of your own, but I do believe that when you're teaching new people, they need to be grounded in their foundation so that they can understand the basic principles and then move forward. And in that point, once you learn the rules, then you learn what rules you can break, basically. But if you don't have a foundation, a strong foundation, then it becomes a problem. Do you have to teach everything Buckland taught? No, I don't think you have to do that. But to criticize a major player in Wicca would be, I think a little harsh, a little callous. You can't cut out major points. You can explain why, as you teach the different forms of Wicca, the different traditions of Wicca, you can say, well, this is why I chose this path, this way, these differences, and you can explain. You don't have to be so hateful. But as she got down to the New Agers, it was, well, she made comments about how that they were just interested in the shiny baubles, and that they were trying to call themselves pagans and New Agers, but that they flitted around to one subject after another and didn't stick with anything. And she admits that she delved into Reiki and yoga, but and aromatherapy, I believe, or was it just aromatherapy and Reiki? But that you can't try something once and then decide you don't like it. Well, first of all, yes, you can try something once and decide you don't like it. You can not try it and decide you don't like it, and you can try it for a year or more and then decide you don't like it. When you're exploring you should explore all kinds of things that interest you. And once you start to explore it, you may find that you're really not interested in that topic. I think I understand which concept she was really talking about, but that's not how she came off, and that's not what she was saying. It was, she needs to either choose her words better or be a little more understanding. That she was talking about also how former Christians or people who and yoga and different things were kind of things that they could still kind of dabble in, but not call themselves, a witch or this or that. But like that's how people explore, and that's how people change their opinions, and that's how people become inclusive instead of someone who is going to be prejudiced and segregated. And the problem, or the way she was coming off of, was that she was causing more rifts between people than she was trying to come across different divides of people. She was not, everybody had to pass her test or she was going to shun them. She was going to say they were crap, or they were, everybody that didn't fit whatever mold she had. Well, she's entitled to her own path and own opinion. So I didn't make a comment or anything, but as these videos started coming, people started talking about them. It came to a point where certain conversations had opened up, and came out that about a paradigm shift to become a true pagan. Well, first of all, what's your definition of a true pagan? When you can be a hoodoo practitioner is based in Christianity. They use the Bible a lot, and they take from the New Testament, the Old Testament. They read Bible verses as their spell work. They use Jesus Christ, amen. They use all of that. Are they not pagan? They are magic workers. They are healers. They know the principles of working with spirit. They do all the work. So why would they not be called pagan? I understand what the person who brought up the paradigm shift was talking about. I do understand what he means. He's talking about someone who's come from a more traditional path of the three major religions. Primarily, though, I believe that he's talking about Christians. And their concept of heaven and hell, their concept of one God, their concept of how they were brought up and raised. And I was brought up and raised in that same concept. And I've noticed it as well, and I've gone through it, I've lived it, where you start to walk the pagan path, but you haven't shook all of the things that have been programmed into your brain, because they've been programmed since usually your birth, and you think every once in a while you'll think, I'm really going to go to hell. What if Jesus thinks I'm forsaking him? You have your moments uh, of not being sure of your path that you're taking. Mainly because maybe it's because you've encountered times where you're with your family members, or it's a Christian holiday, or it's an event at a church, or like a wedding, a family member, baptism, something that you may go and travel back to the church for because it is a family obligation and that you want to be there for your family. But you become conflicted. Or maybe you're having a bad time and you're thinking that, oh, God's punishing me. These things happen, and there is a paradigm shift that you have to do for that, because you have to deprogram yourself from that feeling that everything that you do is going to send you to hell. When you start walking the pagan path, I think that you naturally know instinctually that you're doing the right thing, but at the same time, you'll always have that nagging little feeling because it's been programmed so heavily into you usually that, you wonder sometimes. Maybe these thoughts are even just fleeting. Maybe it's because you're still in the closet and you don't want to be seen, and so you act one way, or you wear a cross, or everything in the beginning is something that your brain can't necessarily wrap around, all the different changes that you're going through. So there has to be a paradigm shift in that, yes. But do I think that you have to be as this guy would call, true pagan to be pagan? I don't think so. I think that you can be a Christo-pagan. I think you can be a hoodoo practitioner. I think that you can be a very eclectic person who uses a lot of things that I learned studying the religions of Abraham, because that's where I was based first. I am not. I would not be accepted in my Southern Baptist church with my views. I was brought up in fire and brimstone country, and no. But the Kabbalah is based in both Jewish and Islamic mysticism. And the Key of Solomon, which I also own that book too, is also another remnant from Christianity. Well, not Christianity, Judaism, because the King Solomon was Jewish. So, but the wisdom of Solomon was of witchcraft, and it was of magic circles and pentacles, and it was of angels and the planetary hours and the right time to do things and the ritual clothing and high ceremonial magic. So you don't have to be a druid or a Wiccan or 1,000 other paths to be pagan. You can be a pagan within the Christian church. You can be a pagan anywhere. That's how pagans existed in a time when they were burning everybody, and they were making people conform out of the pagan religions into the Christian religion. They held a lot, and they got a lot of compromise from the Christian church, as the Christian church had to give you Christmas instead of Yule to stop those pagans from dancing around that Yule log. They got him into church, but they couldn't stop him from dancing. Um, Lunasa is Flamas. Imbolc is Candlemas. There's lots of paganism in Christianity, and it's because we all meld. Just like America melts, it's a giant melting pot, and religions and beliefs and stuff, they cross these lines. They kind of melt and blend, and I think the only wrong person is the one who is so busy discounting everybody else that they can't see the light themselves. So I don't think any religion is wrong, really. Do I think that every religion has everything right? Probably not. Do I think I have everything right? Probably not. I work on it. I try, I study, I learn. I try to take my knowledge from knowledge to wisdom, and there's a difference between knowledge and wisdom. And I do want to say that that girl in those original videos, she seemed very knowledgeable. But I just think that it's a product of her youth that she has not applied certain wisdom in her words. Probably because she's not quite there yet. Not because she's incapable or anything like that. I think that she just hasn't put enough years under her belt, had enough experience to realize she was not born of an age where there wasn't an internet and high technology. She's always had it available to her. So the original video had her saying things like, well, at the end of this first lesson, you had to draw a pentagram. Well, everyone knows what a pentagram is. Really? In 1950, not everybody knew what a pentagram was. Not everybody knew how to draw a pentagram. Not everybody knew the difference between the word pentagram and pentacle. Not everybody knew the difference of anything. If they knew anything, they knew it was the devil. If they knew anything, it was probably upside down. These are the kind of things that they were teaching. Buckland wasn't being, I don't know, at one point she said that he was a woman hater. And the person who put the question in said sexist. Well, there's a difference between a woman hater and a sexist. I don't think he was a woman hater. I don't believe that there's any evidence to show he was a woman hater. She may know Buckland personally. I don't know. Buckland is still alive, I hear, and maybe she knows him personally. But I don't think that sexist. In what regards would you call sexist? You're talking about a time when almost every man was sexist. Because if you didn't think Gardner or they were a product of their time, and women did not have rights. Gloria Steinem hadn't started burning bras yet. We were not in a time where, when you're reading these older books, you have to take it in consideration that not everything is actually true to what we know today, but it was true for what they knew at the time. And everything that they write about, there are wonderful wisdoms in all of those old books, but you do have to take your own common sense and understand what was written of the time. Dion Fortune's one of my favorite writers, but she writes often about things like, one of the things that she writes about yoga and how it is perfect for the people of the East. But Western people are not built for yoga, and that it's not really good for you to practice yoga when you don't know what you're doing, because all of these things and you know that that was just a misconception. Everyone in the West does yoga now. Everybody, I do yoga. I'm overweight. I can still do yoga. I'm pretty darn flexible because I've done yoga for quite some time. Even though I might be overweight, I can do some moves. However, in 1930, a woman doing some of the yoga moves in the clothing that she would have had to wear would not have been acceptable. I don't know that she could have. I don't think there was any clothing available to her that she could have done almost any of the yoga moves without having some serious issues. The men in her family probably would not have allowed the behavior because of the positions, the immodesty. It would not have been accepted probably. So as she wrote for her time. Doesn't mean that we weren't built for yoga. We could definitely do yoga if we wished to. But running around in the wraps around the groin area only in 1930s America probably would have gotten you thrown in jail or the loony bin, and you wouldn't have probably got out anytime soon. So Dion Fortune has a lot of great stuff in her writing, but not all of it applies for us today. Don't discount, my opinion is don't discount the old information, because there are a lot of gems of knowledge in there. And excuse me, I've been sick. I just don't think that you should discount any major contributor to the pagan path, and especially the people who gave you a lot of freedoms today because of their preliminary works that they did. Also, in reviving and recovering a lot of information that had been basically wiped out and lost. We've lost a lot when the burning times happened. We lost a lot when Christianity swept through countries. We lost a lot of Native American information. We lost a lot of indigenous people across the world. We lost a lot of ancient knowledge. We lost a lot of ancient knowledge when the Romans were going through and they were burning everything that was Greek because they hated them. We lost a lot of valuable information, works, how they did things, knowledges that they knew, and anything that was starting to rebuild and bridge those gaps to the past are their jewels, their treasures, they're just as important as the family Bibles in Christianity, where you have not only you have your whole life history back for generations and generations. There's a lot of things in these books. You can also pull old Bibles and see how they were written different, how they change. Sometimes as the translations change, you get new meanings, and sometimes you rediscover old meanings. You can't discount older works. There's a reason why they survive. There's a reason why they come back. There's a reason why things are rediscovered. And I think that discounting anything from the past is a mistake. Um, we need to look at it judiciously because then everything applies to modern society. But there's a lot that still does. And a lot of these ancient people, um, sometimes they're not considered as smart as we are or whatever. Well, you know, they knew so much that we don't know. And even scientists don't know. And how did those ancient people know those things? So their intelligence level was up there. Just because they couldn't tell you how to put together a computer does not mean that they were not intelligent. It doesn't mean that their practices were primitive. They were more in tune to the cycles of the earth. They were more in tune to the energies that things had, and they saw more cause and effect, and they were more um, they were more naturalists and scientists than most of us are today in our society. They took notice of everything because they lived it. And now, I don't think that applies to Buckland or Gardner or anything, but they brought it back and they were trying to revive it and they were trying to recapture things. Some of the stuff that they were doing was experimentation. And yes, sometimes they might have had not everything quite right, or maybe not quite right, but just not perfected. And everybody that comes along adds to that, and that's why I learn from everywhere, because we don't have complete paths all the way back to the more ancient pagans and stuff and how they did things. Um, and witchcraft wasn't actually a religion anyway. Anyone could be a witch. It didn't matter what the religion or belief was. These were workers of herbs and crystals and healers, and um, they had incantations, ways that they did their spell work, and spells were prayers, so it was how they prayed and stuff, but it wasn't necessarily a religion. It crossed the path, these magic workers. Some people called a witch more of a magician or an alchemist or whatever, depending on the tradition. But really, truly, can you tell me the difference between a magician and a witch? Can you tell me the difference between an alchemist and a magician? Um, it's basically the same thing. They're different traditions, so they use different terminology. They were all workers of these energies, and I just think it's a shame when we start saying that these people aren't real and these people over here are, and well, after you learn the wrong way, you can come to me and I'll teach you the right way. That's just very arrogant in my opinion, and for anybody to be acting that way, it only leads to segregation. And you know, I'm going to come from a perspective of myself, but between women and between witches, we've given up so much in the past. We have been held down, held back, abused, mistreated. We've been killed, we've been beaten, we've been tortured, we've been everything in the past. As pagans, we had everything taken away from us. My Native American family, we had everything stripped from us. Why would we do it to ourselves amongst a community that is supposed to be understanding of each other? Because we do all fall under that umbrella of pagan, and I don't understand why a pagan of all people would be so wanting to put walls up and separate people. so one of the things I like about the pagan path is that, and I know that there's not one path in paganism. There's so many. It's varied, and we can all get together and we can all still be friends and help each other out. We can learn from each other's past. We can still grow. Doesn't matter which path your friend might be on. You can still share and exchange ideas and concepts, and I don't see any reason to um, throw up walls to keep people out. I especially don't see any reason to do that to the New Agers, as she put it, that were pagans, and she was saying, she was understanding that New Age was everything, but the people who were coming in and starting to dabble are the very people that are starting the very first parts of exploration and just starting to say, I think this might be okay. I might be able to. Wow, my church always told me that this was evil. Oh, it's not evil. They're actually helping people. I actually felt better after that Reiki session. I actually learned something about using herbs. Why would we be throwing those people out? Why would we be stopping people from understanding that we're not scary, we're not evil, we're not baby killers, we're not devil worshippers? Well, I'm sure that some are Luciferian, and I'm not trying to get into all of that, but not sacrificing animals, we're not doing all the things that the churches have demonized us to be. Why would we be acting like that to people who are coming in and starting to check us out and starting to explore? Why wouldn't we want to be ambassadors and show ourselves to be the community that we are to everyone? I don't understand that at all. The things that were going on in that girl's videos are the very things that keep us separated from mainstream. Not that I want to be mainstream, but I want to be able to practice as I wish, and I want to be safe while I do it. I don't want somebody to come in and burn a cross on my yard, and I don't, and y'all may not understand this out in the YouTube land, but don't think that crosses aren't burned in the South sometimes. They are. I'm in Texas, but I know that there have been some crosses burned in the country area that I used to live in. So I know that these things still exist. And it's any one of us could fall victim to that. So the way you combat that is by opening up to the outside community and letting them know that what you really are and what you really believe, instead of letting them believe the falsehoods and stuff like that. So I don't understand what true pagan is. I don't get that at all. Since paganism is supposed to be covering all of us under that umbrella, I don't understand. Does that mean that people starting out on their path that haven't fully converted over to one path or another, haven't committed, they're not true pagans? Because they're exploring which path that they'd like to go down, or maybe they'd like to go down and learn about multiple paths and incorporate them together. They're not true pagans. No, I don't believe that is. I think I understood the concept of what he was trying to say, and I understand that paradigm that he is actually speaking of, but to say that that person isn't a true pagan until they make that shift, no, I can't go there. So this video is getting rather long, so I need to just stop it here. But just want to say good night to everybody and blessed be.